If you follow my channel, you know last week I posted a public challenge. Could I make Derek, my racer buddy, 2 seconds a lap faster just by using my words and my thoughts? Is it possible? Let me tell you something. The short answer is yes, I was successful. The longer answer is way more interesting. First of all, it cost a lot. It was super hard to do. And how I ended up being successful blows my mind. If you're interested, it's a pretty fascinating story that you might benefit from too. I'm GoGo for SuperDuke.com. Let's talk about the psychology of speed. Derek is on his way over here right now, but before he gets here, I want to share just you and me some things because I don't want to embarrass him more than I usually want to embarrass him. The general idea of the weekend was Friday practice, Saturday and Sunday practice and races. It was AFM round 3. And if you follow my channel, you know that I got hurt in practice for AFM round 1. Serious head injury and ribs and all this stuff. First time I was able to work out really without getting dizzy was like 2 weeks ago. So not really in great shape for this race. I'm feeling a little timid about riding the Gen 3 again because if you know anything about what led up to that crash, the possibilities of what caused the crash, you'll be interested to hear that we fixed nothing. Jerry Piazza made sure the frame was straight, and it was. The front wheel was damaged, bent. The bike high-sided and hit the ground so hard that it tweaked the triples a little bit and bent the front wheel. So Jerry did his magic, and he's a really talented dude. And then I gave the bike to Alex. I told Alex what went on before the race weekend and how the crash happened. And what do you think? And he is by the book. Alex is by the book. And the first thing he said was, we're putting the KTM dealer tool on your bike, and we're going to put the Acra Flash back in from KTM and take it from there. So he did that. And then he realized that with the impact of hitting the ground so hard, probably needed to replace the tilt sensor. Anytime you crash these bikes hard like that, the tilt sensor goes wacko, and you got to get a new one and synchronize it. So he did that, and bike ran beautiful. No issues, no hesitations, no throttle stuff, nothing. It's like it's always been beforehand, which is the way I love this bike. So success there. But day 1, Friday, second practice, Derek's exhaust blew up. So he fixed it and it blew apart again. So his weekend is over. It's Friday afternoon and Derek's weekend is over. I'm already like this about my weekend, and I'm still waiting for parts for this bike to come Friday from Lee, and wasn't really all the way together yet. So I decided right then, you know what? I'm so dedicated to this making you go faster thing. I'm going to sacrifice my weekend. You race my bike Saturday and Sunday, and let's just approach it like that. Commitment, right? So Derek's slower than snot. Saturday on my bike, I thought maybe he's uncomfortable about it. I don't know what it is, but he was cripplingly slow, I have to say. He's not here, so I can say that to you. Really slow. He looked so uncomfortable. He looked so unhappy. He looked like he didn't want to be there while he was riding the bike. And I'm thinking, I don't know what to say. I'm just going to give up my whole weekend and just dedicate to making you faster, right? So super generous thing, right, to do. Super stupid thing to do. I'll never do it again. What a jackass I am. So let's, barring all regrets of the weekend, let's just focus on the positive, okay? Don't build your bike and drive all the way to a racetrack to give your bike away, because this will happen. It'll get crashed.
I should have never came over for this video.
So, in all seriousness, it was difficult to, we talked about track position, we talked about riding position, we talked about getting your knee on the ground, braking, lots of different things.
Topics we've talked about many times before.
Many times, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't happening. Like, if anything, your lap times were getting slower.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was all about, Well, maybe you
I was
could
trying
share.
so hard. The harder I tried, the slower I got.
And that happens. That's happened to me actually. I've told you I've gone like I'm gonna break my personal best. I'm gonna go in so hard on the brakes. I'm gonna go deeper than I ever went before. And the problem is, for me anyway, going deeper than I ever went before on the brakes gets me thinking on the straightaway like, oh god, here comes the braking. I'm gonna brake later than I ever have. Like, oh, and then here it comes, and oh my god, I end up focusing so much on stopping that I end up stopping more than before and going slower than before. Very frustrating. So you experienced something like that?
Yeah, the harder I tried, the more I put into it, I would come off the track dead, and I go slower every time. Every time.
I'm going to share something embarrassing right now.
Oh, now you're gonna do it.
It's not embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
As I'm watching you in Saturday practice now. Friday is like, somewhat of a track day and somewhat racers. Saturday is all racers.
Mhm.
And he's out there in his practice on my Super Duke.
Yep.
And one of the fiercest competitors I face is Stephen Rue. And he's really nice R6, super fast. Like, I can't even stay in the bike's draft. So I noticed Stephen Rue is behind Derek and getting closer, and then passes and then kind of leaves you a little bit. And then I realized it's not Stephen Rue, it's Stephen Rue's wife. And she was kicking your ass.
Yeah.
So at that point I realized this is not going well. We're going to have to come at this from a different direction.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not track position. Maybe it's not braking strategy. Maybe it's something different.
Yep.
So the first thing to share is that in your first race, Saturday,
Yeah. Super Pole, Formula 2.
Derek crashed my bike. Why? Why did you crash my bike? I know why you crashed my bike. You may not. Okay, let me give you my version of why Derek crashed my bike. Because I know he's going to give you something like, oh, did somebody pull in front of me and there's this thing that happened? Bullshit. He got into a group of riders. And, I'm giving him advice throughout the weekend. And I'm sure he's focusing on these things. And they're probably twisting his mind even more. Because he wants to do better, right? But I'm giving this advice, and maybe he's going slower. Every time I gave him advice, he went even slower. It was like I was making a rat's nest in his brain. What I didn't realize is I was making a rat's nest in his emotions. So he's in this race, his first race of Saturday, and the last lap, he's in a group of bikes. Not a huge group, but a group. Where all the previous lap he was by himself going into turn one, like this. So now he goes in a group, and it's something interesting happens when you go in a group. You tend to take on their speed because it's where everyone's going, right? So he takes on their speed, and he refuses. His body, his mind, his emotions refuse to turn in. He just went straight. Turn one is fast. You approach it at 150 miles an hour, and with a tailwind, which there was, probably 155, maybe 160 miles an hour, because it was windy that day. So now he goes in this group at a higher rate of speeds, and he can't make the turn. Trust me, he could make the turn, because later that weekend, I think that night, Saturday night, we looked at the data. My data versus his data. And I was entering that turn 15 miles an hour faster than he was. So the bike could make it, right? And I was always pretty comfortable at that speed. But I think because I had my head wrapped around that, like emotionally, I knew that was my pace. That was the pace the bike could make it. And it took me a long time to build up to that, where Derek hasn't had that much time. His emotional pace is much lower. What is an emotional pace? We'll get into that in a minute. But everything about his emotions and everything about his motorcycle told him, you cannot turn. So he went straight into the dirt. And it's a fast place to go straight over the dirt. And he didn't work out. He crashed. He hit the rear brake. He high-sided in the dirt. And there was everything on the ground. I was watching. I was right there behind the fence. And I saw the whole thing coming. And I wasn't upset. It's, shit happens. But now the project of unwinding his emotions from that, get him back focused to going fast, was not easy. But go ahead, tell your story.
Well, at AFM round 3, there was a hell of a wind. And
It's a wind.
It was the wind.
Crashed because of the wind.
It was the wind. No, seriously.
Can I just interject and say
Yeah.
that Derek crashed after the checkered flag?
Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead, let's talk about the wind.
So, there was a hurricane wind coming down the
It
main.
was windy, and that does throw you off.
Down the main straight at
That's not what
Thunderhill.
throws you off.
Down the main straight at Thunderhill, and it changed the braking marker quite a lot. And I was actually in the last lap. I had a battle, and I passed, and I could hear the guy behind me for the second half of the final lap of the race, and I knew he was right behind me down the straight. And I'm like, okay, I know the start-finish line is beyond where the flag is.
Yeah, Thunderhill's tricky. The guy who waves the checkered flag, you pass him, and then there's the cross, like
The actual
checkered
start-finish.
flag painted on the track, and then there's turn 1, and you're going 150 miles an hour. And
When
turn
there's
one
no wind.
Turn 1 is a substantial left-hand turn. It's not 90 degrees, but it's a serious turn. So it's actually really hard to hold it wide open to start finish.
So I did.
You did.
I held it wide open through start-finish, and then I choked.
I didn't even have to say the word.
Yeah. But I cross start finish, and then I stand on the front brake, and I'm not slowing down enough.
The little battle you were in, did you beat the guy?
I did.
Okay. So there's one positive.
That's one positive.
You poor son of a bitch.
Yeah. And I'm on the brakes, and I get that feeling of I'm not going to make turn 1.
And this was the core of the problem. Keep
And
going.
I'm not going to make it. I'm like, I'm going too fast to make turn 1 in my perception of speed and turn 1. And so I'm like, ooh, okay, well, there's miles of runoff out through turn 1. So I'm like, I'm just going to scrub as much speed as I can off.
Miles of runoff in the dirt.
In the dirt, yeah. So I scrub as much speed off as I can, and I go up the hill. And I hit the rear brake a little harder than I should in the dirt. And is that like a reverse high side?
No, it was a standard high
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
He locks the rear brake up because there was a hay bale that he wasn't going to hit. So he gets the bike like this, and then he goes, wow, I hit the brake too hard. Let's go to the brake, and whack.
Yeah.
The bike just slams down on the tank.
There,
and,
yeah.
And I just had replaced the tank. And now we're tankless.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't upset. Obviously, why would you get upset? Anytime you lend your bike to somebody, just consider it totaled. That's just, you got to be ready. It's like lending someone money, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to lend you $5,000. In my head, I'm never going to see that $5,000 again. However, if you ever lend me $5,000, you're definitely never going to see it again.
Yeah.
I wasn't upset. I knew he wasn't hurt, right? You just tumbled. But, oh my God, psychologically, he was ruined.
Yeah.
He came back to the pits, and you were a mess psychologically.
Yes. Emotional.
Very emotional. I should have filmed it, but I didn't want to make you feel worse. Friday, Saturday, half a Sunday, I could not figure out how to help Derek go faster. You were only going slower.
Yep.
And it was painfully slow, actually. So I'm failing, right? And what did I do? All of a sudden, my tact completely changed. Would you sense that? We haven't
Definitely.
talked about this, by the way.
Definitely changed.
My approach.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be shocked by this. My wife, Tracy, who raced with me for 20 years, she knows the ins and outs of racing and drama and crashing and working with suspension guys and getting the bike better. She's been through it all, thick and thin. And she's also, what she does is she's a yoga instructor and a personal trainer. And let me tell you something, she knows the body really well, and it's quite impressive to have a workout with Tracy. What's even more interesting and unique is Tracy has this ability to make connections with people, like with your emotions. Tracy's yoga classes sometimes, deep in the class, people just start crying. She's not even talking about emotional things. Maybe they're a little emotional, but she's got this knack for being in your head, in your emotions. So it's Sunday, it's 2 o'clock, and I'm desperate. I'm desperate for the answer. So I called Tracy and I said, hey, listen, this is what's going on. We did this, we did this, we did this. I'm telling him this, I'm telling him that. And what is happening? Like, can you think of another way or some way that I can get to Derek? And she says, you guys fuck around too much. Fuck around too much. She said, everything is a joke. When you guys are together, you're always joking. In the videos, it's amusing, but racing is not about joking. This is serious stuff. That boy is out there scared to death. He's scared for his life. And I thought, I never really considered that aspect. Scared for his life. But when you think about it, I looked at his data and the way he was braking, and I was watching him on the track. He was lifting his rear tire in the air, like violently approaching turn one. It was crazy looking the way his rear would come up like this so quickly and then bouncing side by side, and then he would go into the turn 3 miles an hour. So it was like Toprak Ross Faglioli here. And then 200 feet later, some elderly woman going to get groceries. It was that big of a difference. And she said that big of a difference is because he's scared to death. She said, you need to get serious with him. This is racing. This is not screwing around, joking and stuff. You need to get serious with him and help him understand that in order to create a change, you gotta create a change. You gotta make a change. So what happened? Sunday afternoon, after talking to Tracy, I came back at you. And it wasn't even that far before your race. Right?
No, it was right before.
Yeah, it was like 5-10 minutes before your race. And what did I say?
You said a number of things, but one of the things
what made an impression on you? Because something made an impression.
Well, there were two things. One was if you want something to change, you have to make it change. That was one thing. It's a
great line for like life in general.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. And then the other thing was, if you want to continue to do the same thing in your comfort zone, you might as well just do track days.
That was a little bit rude.
It's fair. But the other thing you said that we've talked about before is you want to be a little bit uncomfortable. You don't want to ride around in your comfort zone the whole time, but you don't want to ride around very uncomfortable. So a little bit. And you talked about if you can gain 1 mile an hour around the track, it adds up to quite a lot. You don't want to gain 9 or 10 miles an hour, just 1.
Yeah, because you brought up the data because Derek kind of blew turn 2 at one point on one of your laps earlier in the weekend. And
First lap.
Yeah, but look, but I went in faster than I ever had gone, and it worked out, and I didn't crash.
Yeah.
So, okay, do it the next lap. No, it wouldn't happen. You couldn't do it the next lap.
Yeah.
So he was 9 miles per hour faster at this one moment on this one lap than you had ever been before. But that's not...
Far too much.
Too much. You can't learn from that, right?
Yep.
Learn little bits at a time, little bits. The other thing that you're forgetting that I'm remembering that I said was, I want you to crash the bike.
You did say that.
Turn 2, and you might be at a track has a similar turn, is a very long, consistent radius, 180 degree turn. You just sit in that turn. You just sit, and then you come out the other side. I don't just sit there. I have a different thing I'm doing at each point. But you can just kind of, a lot of people just go around, like follow the track. So what I suggested was crash. in that turn, in the middle of that turn. I want you to crash because you either lose the front
Yeah.
or high side. I want you to roll the throttle a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more until the bike crashes. And that's like, go ahead and crash the bike. You're perfectly willing to. And I guarantee you, you will not crash the bike.
Yeah. I do remember that. I remember you said, I'll buy you dinner for a week. If that's what I remember.
Yeah, but I didn't say it would be a McDonald's.
Yeah.
'Cause it would have been a McDonald's.
Yeah.
So, what does this all mean? What is all this getting to? So Tracy helped me understand that your problem was psychological,
Yeah.
even emotional. Okay? So, one thing that I know is true with me as well, that when you compare most motorcycle racers, most track day people to like MotoGP level dudes, they're going on the brakes and they're getting to this point and they start to trail brake in and they're balancing traction as they're losing traction with lean angle and grip and like they're masters at blending these all together and making it perfect so they're on that edge, right? We are not on any edge.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes we violate the edge and crash. Most of the time, we're well within that edge. What we're balancing, what our biggest challenge, our biggest balancing act is our emotions. Like you have this emotional picture or idea of how fast you can go in a turn. I know you do.
Yep.
I mean, I do too, right? But when you're conscious of that, you can kind of use it as a tool to work past these limitations. It's why people hit plateaus. You talked about, I'm stuck on this plateau, and then I'd like to get to the next plateau. I'm telling you that is emotional.
Yeah.
I can do things to help you make your bike work better. I can teach you different rider positions and braking markers. I can pass you on the track like I've done to show you, hey, look, you really can go this fast here, right? It doesn't do anything to help you get to the next plateau. You have to kind of push yourself. And that's why I say it's really good to be a little bit uncomfortable. I say this with accelerating. I'll say this with braking, roll speed. Make yourself a little bit uncomfortable. Like accelerate a little bit more than you feel like you've got the perfect traction for. And as soon as you realize it's okay, accelerate a little bit more. And that's why I say I accelerate and make 1,000 decisions about accelerating out of one turn, not one. You don't get to a point in a turn, you're like, okay, now.
Right.
That is not the way to ride fast, right? This is the way to ride fast. But you got to make 1,000,000 decisions. Let's say 1,000. Let's say 100. You got to make a lot of decisions. And roll speed's the same way.
Yeah.
Right? And pushing yourself to the next, And I say what I said to you is rude. I didn't mean it to be rude, but kind of maybe felt that way. Maybe it sounded that way. But when Tracy said we screw around too much, everything's a joke, everything's laughing, it's nice. That's an enjoyable thing. But racing and track days, it's serious. Even if you're just out there having a good time, you can get hurt, right? So be committed, be dedicated. And if you want to go faster, you got to kind of be committed to that too. And you got to do things that will make you a little bit uncomfortable.
Yep.
As long as you're staying comfortable all the time, you're never going to go anywhere. I had a race on the East Coast on an FZR 600 14 million years ago. I was at a plateau. I remember minute 22s. I couldn't go faster than that. And then my front brake pads glazed over in a race. I was pulling that lever. I brake with 2 fingers. Even back then, I was using my whole hand, squeezing the lever so hard that I thought I was going to break the lever off the bike. Because Loudon has this turn 3 where if you blow the turn, you will hit a wall. It's perpendicular. Like you face this wall and you turn underneath it and then you go around. It's crazy dangerous, right? But that's the way they designed the track. So I'm oh my god. And I would get to the point where, well, I know I'm not going slow enough to make this turn. But if I just go straight, I'm hitting the wall.
You got to go.
I got to turn,
Yeah.
right? If it doesn't work out, maybe I'll crash and hit the hay bales or the tires or whatever. That's the best case scenario. So I just had to let go of the brake. And I did that lap after lap. And I broke my personal best by 2 seconds. Just because I learned. I didn't want to learn. Like I was like complaining and whining the whole way. Screaming even. But I was being force taught that my emotional idea of what was the fastest I could go was wrong. You could go faster. So when you went into turn one with those bikes around you, your emotional idea of how fast you could turn a motorcycle was all fucked up.
Yep.
So you decided to go straight because you were afraid of crashing, and you crashed.
Yes.
So your emotions are a mess.
Yeah. And that didn't help them for Sunday. Yeah.
But I will say this. After that talk, after telling you what I remember is I said, this is serious, right? Stop fucking around.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to just go around and enjoy yourself, do track days.
Yep.
But this is racing.
Definitely.
And racing is all about improving, pushing yourself, getting to the next level, always trying to improve. That's why we crash sometimes, because you're going beyond. And then you're like, okay, that's not possible. Let me do this instead, right?
Right.
So that's racing. Either you're racing or you're not.
Right.
Right? Well, that's one thing I said. The changes thing, like you're at a plateau and you keep doing the same thing over and over.
Yep.
If you want to experience change, make a change.
Yep. Yep.
Be it rolling through turn two a little faster until you learn, holy cow, I guess I was okay. I guess I can go faster. Maybe Go-Go's not trying to kill me, right? So these things. Anything else?
That's what I remember you saying. But then I remember rolling down the pits to grid up for that race.
Oh, interesting.
And I had it felt like a really long ride to get to the track, actually. But I was thinking about all the things you said, and I was also thinking about how this is my last race weekend of the year. And I was thinking about, we get so few opportunities out here. And I was taking away your opportunity to ride as well. You were nice enough to give up your weekend and your bike.
Jackass.
Yeah. I didn't ask for that also. But
no, you didn't. And actually he said no, to your credit. He was like, no, I can't do it. I was like, yeah, you can and you're going to do it. Shut up. Get on the bike.
Yeah. And I really didn't want to let you down. I didn't want to let myself down. And I was like, it's going to be such a long drive home if I don't give it my all, right, on this next race.
Yeah, that's what I focus on. It's never really a matter of your result, right? It's are you trying?
Yeah.
Are you putting the effort in?
Yes.
And I appreciate that because I watched you in the race, and I'm telling you, Derek was a complete 2 seconds. You wouldn't think 2 seconds is that big of a deal. He looked completely different. You looked like, okay, you would brake for turn one, and you weren't getting that craziness, right? No. And you were going into turn one like you wanted to go into turn one. It's like when we play, that's how we know each other from softball, right? I make that analogy also in ball. Sometimes you'll see a guy in shortstop, and shortstop is a really important position, right? And the guy looks like, don't hit it to me. Don't hit it to me. You know, you're fucked, right? There's no way the team's going to win. You're just screwed. But some dudes are like, give me the ball, get it to me.
Yeah.
That's the way you looked when you were going into turn one after the Tracy talk.
Right.
Before the Tracy talk, get me out of here. I don't want to be here. Please. Can we go to Starbucks? Can we get ice cream? Anything, but I just don't want to be on this racetrack. That's what you look. That's like what you were projecting.
Yeah.
as you were going into turn one. And I felt terrible. I was trying to solve that for him, but I was failing and failing and failing. What the hell? How do you give up your bike and get it crashed and not achieve what you set out to achieve?
Yeah.
Plus, I made this short, and people know what's happening.
Yeah.
There was a lot. There was a lot on that weekend.
Definitely.
So I'm proud of you. You
Thank
did a
you.
great job. You looked like you could actually ride a motorcycle for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So it's pretty remarkable that you can get somebody to go faster without touching them, without touching the bike. I did make some adjustments, but that was like Saturday morning. It had no effect on
No.
you going faster or not. The bike looked better, but it didn't affect you going faster or not. It's just the psychology of speed, the emotional part.
You know what's funny is Jason Rosa is a new racer in the AFM. His number is 976, and he was checking on Speed Hive, and he saw that I achieved the.
He knew about the challenge.
He knew about it, and he called me after it, and he said, "Hey, man, what did it?" He's like, "Was it the little preload that GoGo added? Was it the compression?" and I told him it wasn't any of those things, and he was like, "Damn it."
Yeah, because that's an easy fix, right? If you
Yes.
can just go click and then you're faster, great.
Great.
But this challenge is much more
Yeah,
complicated
definitely.
and hard to access.
And that was the third race of the weekend for me, and I had two more, and I didn't get to ride them, unfortunately, because they were back to back, and so I filled the gas tank all the way up, and it started leaking.
Which revealed
There was a crack
a
in the
big
tank.
problem. Which revealed the fact that you were leaking gas all weekend.
Yeah,
But not as much as when you double filled it. So
but
he didn't do the last two races.
the point is, I was pissed because I really wanted to get back out there for the next two races, because I felt like I made such a leap. I was looking forward to going back out and doing it again, and hopefully doing a little better.
So in the end, we were successful. Derek went 204s, low 204s. And the best he had done before is low 206s. But the road to 204s was very bumpy and somewhat expensive and very challenging, but super educational. So here we are, sharing the education. I hope that it helps you as much as it helps Derek. I'm GoGo for superdukes.com. Everybody makes everybody better.